You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 64. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Let's take a little trip down memory lane. I was a teenager in the late 80s and early 90s, and as a teenager during those lovely years, one of the signs of friendship and affection and sometimes more was creating a mixtape for someone else. Mixtapes were the best. It was a collection or a compilation of important or meaningful or carefully curated songs in a specific order. Plus, let's talk about cover art, right? People would get super creative. There was a lot of time and attention and intention that went into these beautiful, personalized, meaningful musical gifts. And when I think about the mixtape version that we have today, I guess for a while there people were making mixed CDs for each other, but really I guess the closest thing that we have are playlists. And I don't think we necessarily make playlists on music software programs nowadays as gifts or presents or signs of affection or interest in another person, but I am a huge fan of making playlists. I make them all the time, and I make them for a lot of different reasons. So I thought today I would share with you my life in playlists, what kind of playlists I make, why I make playlists, how I use the playlists, how I plan to use more playlists in the future. And if this piques your curiosity, and if you think this sounds fun or interesting, maybe you will make a playlist too, or make more playlists if you already have a few, and maybe we'll all share our playlists with each other. Before I really dive deep in though, I do want to give you a note about technology. I love technology. I am a huge fan. I am so grateful for what technology does for me in my life, how easy it makes so many things. And I am not tech resistant, but I am change resistant. So I'm not an early adopter when a new software program comes out or a new streaming service or a new anything comes out technology-wise. I am not the first person to jump on the bandwagon. I wait until critical mass has been reached and most people are using it, and I'm actually kind of one of the stragglers, the tech stragglers. That's when I finally get on board. So there may be other current softwares and programs, and I might be using an old school system that everyone has moved on from, but I'll just tell you what I use, and then you can let me know if you think I should use something else. Basically, what I use is YouTube and Spotify. And I was using YouTube first to create my playlists and loving it and being so grateful for it. And then, just like everything, things change. YouTube has changed. It's not the same as it was back when I first started making my playlists on YouTube, but I adapted. I still use it. I just make allowances for the changes in YouTube, and I am so grateful that it is still a free service for me. So I use YouTube and Spotify, and I fully am aware that these may not be my choices in the future, that these may not work the way that they work for me right now in the future. I know that things will change. I know that technology will advance. Maybe I'll advance with it. Maybe I won't. I'm okay. I just love what I have for now, and I also recognize it's temporary and it's evolving. So I think one of the first ways that I got into creating playlists for myself, and this history that I'm going to give you might be slightly chronologically out of order, but in general, it's probably pretty accurate. So the first way that I got into making playlists for myself in YouTube was because I was using another older, maybe not as current music streaming service, Pandora. So I would sit at my desk back when I worked at a desk in an office. I would listen to Pandora, just like the popular or the current music on Pandora. And so it would just give me a pretty good variety and mix of music. And if I ever wanted to change it, I could just choose a different genre. But I pretty much just listened to whatever was current and popular. There were certain songs that, because I listened to it 8 hours a day, every day, there were certain songs that I noticed myself really enjoying or finding really catchy or wanting to listen to later, and knowing that these songs were kind of an emblem of that time in my life. And so I decided that I would make playlists representing each summer. And I think the first one that I did, it was maybe like the summer of 2015, 2014 even maybe. But what I would do is I would notice the songs that really popped out to me and that I kind of heard myself humming along or singing along to while I was at work, or that would kind of jump into my head at other times in the day. And then I would go into a playlist on YouTube and I would collect all those songs together, so that when I played that playlist called the Summer of 17, let's say, or the Summer of 18, it would just bring back all the memories from that summer, because all of those songs would have been songs that I was listening to frequently during that time period. I loved that. I love, even now, going back into my YouTube library and pulling up the summer of 2018 and just taking myself back on that little trip down memory lane. The next way that I started using playlists more frequently was for parties. So back in the day when I used to be, okay, let's just say it, I used to be a superhost. I don't know if that's a thing, but I used to just pride myself on planning every detail of a party. It was themed, there was a menu, there was a decor design situation, and of course I had a playlist. My preference as a hostess at a party is to have a video playlist. That way people have something to look at. It provides the soundtrack and the backdrop. It's a conversation starter. It puts us in the mood. I am all about having a video playlist, specially curated and specially timed and sometimes thematic for a party. Now, for a more casual get-together, I might just use one of my existing playlists, like the summer of 2018 would be a perfect playlist for a summertime party. But if I was having a special party, for example, one year, I think it might have been in 2018, we had a Roaring 20s party. Oh, how little did we know how roaring the 20s would start. But anyhow, going back to that Roaring 20s New Year's Eve party before 2020, we planned costumes, I planned decorations, I just went all out on everything, including the playlist. And I spent hours on that playlist, and it was epic. I pulled movie scenes from different movies and TV shows like The Great Gatsby, and from the TV show Boardwalk Empire, where it was all kind of during that Prohibition time. And I chose specific music that matched, and I really planned the music so that it would start like high energy and then give me some cues as we were getting close to the 3-hour mark. So I knew exactly at what time the party started and therefore what time I would start the playlist. And then I would notice when certain songs came on, oh, we're getting close. It's getting close to New Year's Eve. So that's one of those examples of a playlist that just added the chef's kiss on to the rest of the party, which was amazing, by the way. Another themed party that I remember really focusing on my playlist a lot, after I had focused on all the other details, which were very, very detailed, was a sangria tasting party that my husband and I concocted. And it actually started out, and we invited our friends as a sangria tasting party, but we switched it at the end, and it was actually a sangria making party where we had two teams, the red team and the white team. Each of them had their own kits, sangria making kits, but no recipe, just directions on how to develop their own recipes. So then they made their own recipes, and then we came together and we judged, and we also compared to some store-bought sangria mixes. So it was super fun, and it was all sangria themed. And so of course my playlist had to be sangria themed as well. And that caused me to really search for some drinking songs and some wine songs and some fruit songs. And it was just so much fun. And it was such a lovely playlist. And it just really added that element to that party. So those are just some examples so far of how I've used playlists for entertainment and for mood setting and just to make people feel like they're having a good time. But I also use playlists just for myself, for my own personal memories and self-reflection. So I got this idea that it would be really, really interesting to create a playlist representing my entire life. I started to think back to what were the earliest songs I could remember, hearing on the radio or singing, or what were the earliest songs like when I was 4 years old and 5 years old. And then I went through each year of my life to try to remember what song was meaningful or important to me during those years. And not just a specific song, but kind of a little handful of songs. Some years had more than others. So this took a surprising amount of research to figure it out. I mean, the first thing I did was I just wrote down all of the years, and then I just tried to guess. Like, okay, well, when I was in 5th grade, I remember this song. My friends and I used to sing it together. Or I remember that one summer vacation, we sang this song with my cousins, or whatever the story was, right? So first of all, I just listed all the years, and then I started to plot and map in the songs that I could remember just off the top of my head. But then I started to actually research. So if there were any gap years that I really couldn't think of a specific song, or if I wasn't sure exactly which year a song belonged in, I went online and I started researching most popular songs in 1986 or important songs in 1992 or whatever. And I scrolled around and I looked through, and some songs reminded me of other songs. And then I saw that a song that was important to me in 2000 was actually released in 1998 and I didn't even realize it, or whatever the case may be. But that's how I compiled that list of songs. And I think it has, now that I created it, I think it has over 100 songs on it. And it is over 8 hours. So I use this playlist in 2 different ways. Sometimes I listen to it chronologically. So the first song on it, I think, is Leaving on a Jet Plane. I think that's the very first song I can kind of remember. And then there's some other really fun and interesting songs there from the early 80s. And then it goes all the way up to, basically present day. And I'm trying to be good about remembering to add to it, but I haven't probably really added to it, certainly not in 2020. So that's definitely something I can go back and do again. But I just love having my own lifetime soundtrack. And I so recommend, if this is at all interesting to you, I just cannot recommend it highly enough because it was such a fun experience. And now that I have that lifetime soundtrack, I love going back and listening to it either chronologically or just on shuffle and seeing where it pops in and what songs it plays next to each other. And it's just a really fun personal thing for me to have. I first created that on YouTube, and then I thought, why not also create it on Spotify? So I did. I have it on both places. And I'm really, really glad that I invested the time to do that. So that's the biggest playlist, the most important playlist, I guess, out of this whole episode. But I have some other playlists to tell you about as well. I have made playlists for specific purposes, including non-music purposes. So back when I decided that I wanted to learn tarot, and I threw myself into that full force. I made myself flashcards, I read books, I watched other teachers, I joined a study group, both in person and online. I did everything. And one of the things that I did was find a teacher who I really resonated with, whose style of reading I really appreciated. And I made a playlist of many of his daily tarot readings that he had done in the past. I would play the playlist and I would just kind of keep my finger on the pause and play, so that he would flip over a card and say like, oh, it looks like you got the 3 of Wands. And so then I would pause it and I would write down what I thought, and then I would play it and hear his interpretation of it. And then I would make notes of anything that was different or anything that I didn't know or a unique perspective that he shared that I hadn't heard before. So that was a really, really great learning tool, creating those playlists from one of my favorite teachers of his videos. Another way that I use playlists now, and I love it so much, and I really, really recommend it, is I have a manifesting playlist. So I thought of and researched a little bit, but mostly these were just songs that came to my mind. I thought of songs that put me in a really high vibe, that made me feel like everything is possible, that had lyrics and ideas and melodies in the song that just felt very uplifting and go after what you want and get it, and you can have whatever you want. And I just collected all of these songs into a playlist that I call my manifesting playlist. And again, I was very specific about the order of how I ordered the songs. So for a while there, I would listen to that specific playlist every morning while I was getting ready. And I loved it. It just put me in the right mindset. I repeated the lyrics. I mean, it was basically like doing musical mantras every single day. And I really attribute that to helping me manifest many things that I wanted for myself during that time. I still have that playlist available to me. I don't use it very much right now, maybe just because I'm kind of living the life that I created for myself and I'm doing pretty well, but I always know that I could pull that playlist out in a moment if I needed to. So that's something that I recommend for you too. Again, if this sounds interesting, if you have a little bit of curiosity about it, what songs would you include on a manifesting playlist? And then why don't you just go and make that playlist? The next way that I've used playlists in YouTube is for my Zumba workouts. And I did an episode about this a couple of months ago when I talked about how to get whatever you want. One of the ways that I get whatever I want for myself is basically just creating what I want. So one of the things that I wanted was Zumba class every day at the time that I wanted, with the teachers that I wanted and the soundtrack that I wanted. And that was during the middle of COVID, so the gyms were closed, and even if they were open, I wasn't going to go anyhow. So I just decided to make playlists with the songs that I liked and chose the teachers that I liked, and then that way I could play it every day at the same time, and it was amazing. So I think at first I started out with one playlist, then I just thought, oh, wouldn't it be great to have a different one for each day of the week, which I did. And then recently I thought, I'm a little tired of those. Let me make another one with more current songs. So this is like a never-ending gift. Every day, if I wanted to, I could make a brand new Zumba playlist and play over and over again. I could have themed. If I wanted to do all disco Zumba, I could. Or if I wanted to do all hip-hop Zumba or all Latin or whatever, you could do whatever you want. All female singers, all male singers, all boy bands, whatever. But that's what I've done so far, and I've really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I have those. And I shared those with all of my favorites as well. So if you are on my email list, whenever I did that episode, I would have sent you the list of those or the links to those playlists, and you can still get them now because I have them linked in the companion workbook that goes along with this podcast episode. So whenever you sign up and join my email list as one of my favorites, you get sent a link to that companion workbook that does have, among everything else that I've shared with my favorite people, it does have that list of Zumba playlists too. And now, currently, I've been using playlists for chakra balancing. So one of my new things that I'm kind of curious about and getting interested in and researching and learning about is chakras. I noticed I had some tightness in my throat, and I went through a list of possible reasons in my mind about what might be causing it. Maybe it's allergies, maybe I'm getting sick. Maybe my throat chakra is out of balance. And that was the thing that I just decided to start researching, and I got really interested in it. And I have a little chakra workbook and activity book, and luckily it suggested possible songs to go along with each of the different energy centers or chakras that we have in our bodies. And so I made a playlist for each of the chakras based on the recommendations in this book, and I love them. So now I have these 7 chakra playlists on Spotify. They're about 30 to 40 minutes each, and there's just such a great variety of music, songs from the past, songs I've never heard before, songs I loved and haven't thought of recently. And I just really, really appreciate that the author of the workbook took the time to put the list together, and then that I took the time to make myself these playlists in Spotify, and I've really been enjoying listening to them. I enjoy listening to playlists created by other people too. One of my favorite writers, Alexandra Franzen, frequently makes playlists, and when she sends out her emails to her list, she'll frequently send out, use this playlist if you're feeling moody, use this playlist if you want to go zen, or I'm sure I'm not saying the descriptions the way that she does. So I really appreciate hearing other people's playlists. And what actually prompted this whole episode was a friend of mine is getting married on 4/3/2/1. And she was telling us how she's working with her DJ to come up with a playlist for her wedding and how they were choosing the songs. And I just thought, isn't it lovely to share important songs with other people and to put songs in a specific order for meaningful reasons? And it just really made me want to share my own love of creating playlists with you and maybe inspire you to create some playlists for yourself the way that I've just described. So I think maybe part of the reason why I'm really, really attracted to making playlists is because it really satisfies my desire to control the order and the timing of things. I mean, there is just no doubt that the playlist will turn out exactly how I want, and I can start it and stop it exactly how I want. And since we don't get that opportunity in life, maybe I find that in some small measure just by creating a delightful little playlist for myself. What have I not done yet, but now I might? I really think I'm going to make myself a surrender playlist. So if you've been listening to the past few episodes, you know I'm completely infatuated with the idea of surrender. I'm learning about it. I have a study group about it. I am researching. I'm experimenting. And just like I had that manifesting playlist a few years ago and it really helped me and it really worked, I think I want to create a surrender playlist for myself too. So I am curious if you have suggestions for me. Is there a different platform or software besides YouTube or Spotify that you think I should be using to get with the times? And what songs do you think I should include in my surrender playlist? I'm very curious to hear recommendations. And can you think if there is a playlist I should make for another specific purpose that I'm not thinking of right now? Do you have any playlists? Do you listen to a specific playlist for cleaning, for working out, for driving, for settling down at the end of the day? When you're with certain people, do you like listening to certain music? Have you ever curated a specific playlist for yourself, and how did you do it and why, and how did you choose your songs? I want to know everything, obviously. But if you have any questions for me about my playlists, please let me know. And I'm really just curious if you are as delighted and invested as I am, or maybe you're just neutral, you could take it or leave it. Or do you have any resistance to creating and listening to playlists that you've created for yourself? So I want to hear all about it. You can leave me a comment on the show notes for this episode at bexb.org/playlists, or just send me an email at hi@bexb.org. Thank you so much for listening. You are very welcome to put all of my podcast episode into a giant playlist if you want to hear this continuously. Otherwise, I'll just talk to you again next Friday. Bye-bye. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexb.org to see how we can work together.